So hello everyone, I am Biprojit Nath from Tata Memorial Hospital, Bombay, and our today's topic of discussion is in understanding FAPI in relevance to tumor biology. So that's the contents of my today's presentation. I will first start with understanding the basic tumor biology, then talk about the fibroblast activation protein, then we'll see some of the clinical relevance of it. We'll talk about how this FAPI is being radiolabeled and being imaged, and finally we'll talk about the battle between FAPI and FTG. So before we go and talk more about FAPI as a whole, we'll spend some time understanding the basic tumor biology. So that's a normal epithelium which goes through a series of process to get to a state of carcinoma. So that's how a normal epithelium looks like. It has keratinocyte in the epidermis. It has a well demarcated basement membrane and also a good stromal compartment. And if you go and see, there is collagen bundle, there is fibroblast over here, and these fibroblasts are we call as a resting or the quiescent fibroblast. There is monocyte and so on and so forth. But due to some of the insults to these normal epithelium, like any mutation or any other factor, it can lead to a state called as a pre-malignant dysplasia. Uh, and what actually happens, the differentiation of these epithelial cells is disturbed and it lead to the formation of an hyperplastic epithelium. However, the basement membrane remains intact, but there are changes in the stromal compartment. You can see the number of macrophages has increased, and also the fibroblast, which was initially a quiescent or resting fibroblast, has now transformed to what we call as an activated fibroblast. And the proliferation of this epithelial cell along with the development of an activated stroma can lead to a state of carcinoma, which has a reactive tumor stroma. And we can see that the ECM components like collagen bundles have degraded, the number of inflammatory cells have increased, and these fibroblasts has now transdifferentiated to myofibroblast. The basement membrane is no longer intact. It has multiple ports in it, or we can call this a leaky membrane, and for these there is dispersion of the cells and lead to the secondary metastasis. So that's how the state looks like. It has a proliferating endothelial cell, it has blood vessel which express VEGF receptor, it has fragments of ECM matrix molecules, it have active proteases, it has activated fibroblast, and it has a broken basement membrane. And there is a series of complex crosstalk which goes between the tumor cells and their stroma, or more preferentially their activated stroma. So the tumor actually secretes growth factor which induce angiogenesis, and which in turn it recruit an activated stromal inflammatory and fibroblast, and this fibroblast in turn secrete further growth factor, and it lead to establishment of an activated stroma that promotes malignant tumor growth. But how all these stories are related to FAPI? So now let's go back once again and see this part. So tumor cells secrete some growth factor like TGF beta, PTGF, and many more factor. And what this TGF beta does, it helps in it transdifferentiate fibroblasts to what we call as activated smooth muscle reactive fibroblast or myofibroblast. And these myofibroblasts are identified immunohistochemically based on expression of different markers. For example, it expresses alpha smooth muscle actin, it expresses vimentin, it expresses desmin, and also fibroblast activation protein, and that's crucial for FAPI imaging. All right. So now let's spend some time understanding this protein as a whole. So this fibroblast activation protein is a type 2 integral membrane serine protease of the purine oligopeptidase family, and these enzymes are specialized to cleave after the proline amino acid bonds. For example, there's a peptide over here like glycine, proline, arginine. So this FAP will come and cleave right after the proline amino acid, and this enzyme or FAP is known to have its role in normal development process during embryogenesis and in tissue remodeling, and it is not or present at significant level in normal adult tissue. Example like uterus, cervix, placenta, breast, skin, which show low to moderate expression as compared to tumors. However, there are high expression of FAP in wound healing, in inflammation, in arthritis, and also in more than 90 percentage of epithelial carcinomas. And some of the substrate for these FAP enzyme are neuropeptide Y, beta type, natriuretic peptide, and so on and so forth. So now, as we know, this FAP is expressed more in cancer. So we can devise some method to target FAP. It can be based on FAP. It can be either in FAP substrate or FAP inhibitors. So our lecture today is focused on FAP inhibitors. So in an attempt to develop FAP specific inhibitors, this group of people, Jason, examined a variety of structurally related small molecules, with some of being highly specific for FAP, and these molecules could be used as lead structure for new radiopharmaceutical development. So based on several of these studies, based on Jason's and multiple people study, FAPI1 and FAPI2 was being developed initially. So that's FAPI1 and that's FAPI2, and so you can see FAPI2 is a daughter link compound. And if we see FAPI1, so this FAPI1 is labeled with iodine 125, FAPI2 with gallium 68 or lutetium 177, gallium for diagnostic application and lutetium for therapeutic application. So FAPI1, it proved to be suboptimal due to enzymatic deiodination with a flux of free iodine and consequently a lower intercellular radioactivity after a longer incubation interval. However, FAPI2, which was total linked, it showed better result. All right. So, but in order to optimize uptake and preserve retention in the tumor, a series of compounds which was based on FAPI2 was being developed, because FAPI2 was better than FAPI1, but not that better. So, in order to enhance its cellular retention, some of the tracer was being developed, like FAPI10 was developed or designed by adding a nuclear localization signal to enhance its cellular retention and its intercellular transport. Like this, the sequence of events which actually happened. FAPI1, it was not that much good because of its enzymatic deiodination. FAPI2 was better, but not that much better. Then FAPI4, FAPI21, FAPI46. So FAPI2 and FAPI4 are pretty better. And if you go and see, but FAPI2 has a demerit, is because it has a quicker retention. It has a very less retention time. It excretes very quickly from the lesion. If we go and see the structure, that if we go and see the SUV value from 1 to 3 hour, FAPI2, the SUV value drops very drastically. Whereas for FAPI4, the SUV value drops, but over a shorter, in a small increment. So there is higher retention over a longer time, but whereas there is a higher excretion in a smaller in this time interval. So that's the structure of FAPI2 and FAPI4. FAPI2 has a higher elimination from the lesion, whereas FAPI4 has a little bit good retention time in the lesion from 1 to 3 hours, and that's the structure. It looks pretty similar structure. Apart from these carbon position, FAPI2 does not have any fluorine group over here, whereas FAPI4 has 2 fluorine groups attached to over it, and that's the cage where this gallium will be trapped. So that's how this things looks like, and that's the SNMI image of the year. That's Nobel Reddit Tracer detects 28 cancer types, paving the way for development of new therapies. It can be used for sarcoma, esophageal cancer, and many more, and so on and so forth. So that's the MIP. That's a patient with colorectal carcinoma, and because of its low physiological background uptakes, some tiny lesions in the lung can be seen over here. And also we can see some of the hypodense lesion over in the liver, which also shows FAPI a bit uptake over here. And apart from this FAPI can also be used for RT planning to improve the gross tumor volume delineation in preparation for patient with EBRT. And now coming to how it can be radio labeled and imaged. So what we do basically, we have our we'll talk about gallium labeling of FAPI4 in brief. So we have our generator germanium gallium. So we'll inject some 0.05 molar ACl to elute galliate 3 plus, and this will be used under optimum heating conditions and buffer conditions. This will go and bind over here, and that's the radio labeling parts. In some brief we will talk about it. So in regarding imaging, gallium will decay by positron decay. Positron has a defined range. It will annihilate with an electron, release two high energy gamma ray photon having energy 511 keV, and this will be detected by the PET cameras and will be used for image reconstruction, and finally we'll get image like this. So we've talked about it briefly, although, and now the final part of it, like the battle between FAPI and FDG. So why do FAPI based tracer appear so promising compared to FDG, mainly in oncological setting? So first is DOTA-FAPI is labeled with gallium-68, which is obtained from germanium gallium generator, and the radio tracer can be produced on site, also in departments without an on-site cyclotron, making it feasible at lower cost even in small centers. The usable gallium activity from a generator is limited by the amount of activity loaded on the generator, the interval between elutions, and the maximum number of them, as well as by the ever increasing price of generators. So also there are being some techniques introduced in the production of gallium 68 by cyclotron. They have zinc 68 target, which they bombard by protons and get gallium 68 by emission of high energy neutrons. So that's how they can also produce gallium, which will be used for labeling with our peptide FAPI4. And secondly, the main advantage of FAPI is that there is no need for fasting or any dietary preparation, as no glucose related metabolic pathways are involved, allowing a high compliance for the patient. And also it's more feasible in diabetic patients who have high serum glucose level. However, for FDG, we need to prepare the patient to make the glucose level optimum for the FDG scan, whereas for FAPI there is no such regulations needed. And also the uptake time can be reduced to 10 minutes, and that's pretty an advantage for sick patients. So because of a shorter waiting time, which can be relevant in sick patient, as also for the department's workflow, and the radiation burden on the examination might be reduced if the injector activity can be lessened due to faster uptake time. And finally, if you go and see the normal tissue biodistribution of gallium FAPI ligands in comparison to FDG, it shows a lower brain, liver, and oral mucosa uptake. So therefore, the primary or metastatic lesion in these organs can be easily identified. So that's a series of study being done by these people to see the sensitivity and specificity of FAPI. So in the depiction of primary tumors, sensitivity of FDG is about 82.1 percentage, and for FAPI it's about 98.2 percentage. You can see FAPI is more sensitive than FDG for depiction of primary tumors. And in the gallium 68 DOTA-FAPI PET-CT images, most primary lesions were visualized with clear tumor delineation and demonstrated a high tumor to background contrast than F18 FDG. And if you go and see the SUV values of primary lesion, SUV values were more higher in FAPI than that of these FDG images. So that's the SUV values for these tumors. If you go and see the median SUV value for lung cancer, it's about 4.5, for colorectal it's about 8.29, and so on and so forth. Whereas for gallium DOTA-FAPI, it's pretty higher. For lung cancer, the median SUV is about 11.97. So its SUV values are higher for DOTA-FAPI as compared to FDG. And that's the diagnostic performance of DOTA-FAPI along with FDG. And we can see that DOTA-FAPI has higher sensitivity for assessment of lymph node involvement, whereas FDG has higher specificity for assessment of lymph node involvement. And if we go and check about this one for assessment of bone mets and visceral mets, FDG has higher specificity, whereas DOTA-FAPI has higher sensitivity for assessment of bone and visceral metastasis. So for the depiction of distal mets, gallium DOTA-FAPI is outperformed better than FDG, especially in liver, peritoneum, mesentery, omentum, brain, and axial skeleton, confirming the above mentioned data that gallium 68 FAPI4 is better than FDG in some organs. But the limited availability of the tracer and the small number of research data available, it requires further evaluation, mainly in different patient populations and in new contexts, in order to obtain a significant panel of advantages and hopefully scare pitfalls. So promising fashion men or progressively matter. So time will tell, and at least for now, FDG can sleep peacefully. So that's it for now, and thank you so much.